Welcome back. You're still watching Tech Hub, the TV show for all things tech in Africa. We're back now to discuss our main subject today, which is cloud adoption in Nigeria. Several industries in Nigeria are already leveraging cloud technology to streamline operations and to enhance customer experience. But a recent study in Nigeria suggests that about 30.2 trillion naira can be generated as an additional economic value from cloud adoption by the year 2033. And this is representing around 0.36% of Nigeria's current cumulative GDP. And that's a staggering opportunity for businesses looking to scale and innovate. But as at the end of 2021, only 27% of Nigerian organizations had embraced cloud computing, which puts us far behind Western Europe and North America, where adoption rates around 49%. Today we are joined by a leading voice in Nigeria's tech space, a cloud expert by excellence. I have David Ekefre, who help us break down the state of cloud adoption in Nigeria. David, it's a delight to have you on the show today.
Same here, Kenneth. How you doing?
I'm wonderful. And now let's talk about this cloud adoption. Can you give us an overview of the current state of cloud adoption in Nigeria today?
Yeah, well, I mean, just like the stats you shared, right? There has been a somewhat slow adoption when it comes to cloud adoption. However, we've seen some increase, right? So basically what we're looking at is more and more organizations are embracing the idea, right, but not necessarily executing the idea of adopting cloud. So that's what we've seen over the past 2-3 years. Most definitely there has been a lot more increase, right, especially with a lot of awareness when it comes to the regulatory bodies. I think more regulatory bodies are talking about cloud frameworks. None has actually come out yet, but those kind of conversations are going on. So we have more organizations becoming more aware and also adopting. And it's very slow rates, to be honest.
So what has it been like in the last 5 years? What has the adoption been like? You talked about accepting but not executing. What do you mean by that?
So basically, we're looking at, should I say, it's not something new. Let's start with that.
Absolutely.
Right? Leveraging the cloud is not something new. I mean, we have organizations who use Google Workspace as their email, Gmails, who use Outlook 365. These are all cloud adoptions, right? But when we're talking about core infrastructure in terms of having their core products hosted on the cloud, having their core business support IT infrastructure hosted on the cloud, then there's a bit of pushback in terms of first of all, there's a skill and expertise, right? It's not, I mean, globally when it comes to the cloud industry, skill and expertise is one of the top 3 challenges, right? So that is also reflected within the Nigerian market space as well. So there's you do a lot of proof of value, you do a lot of demonstrations, but the actual implementation and actual usage of it, isn't as fast as we expect it to be.
So what industries in Nigeria are leading the shift, are embracing cloud faster, and why?
Yeah, most definitely the financial sector, right? And largely because their entire business is powered by technology, right? They need their customers to be able to leverage technology in terms of making use of their financial products, communicating with the company themselves. So yes, the financial sector, and that's largely because 90% of their business is powered by technology.
And what sector have been the slowest to adopt, and what have been their barriers?
I would say, I mean, this isn't confirmed, right? But this is just from my experience within the industry. I would say somewhere around the manufacturing sector, right? And maybe some of the barriers would be general industry technology adoptance rates, right? So I think the manufacturing industry is a bit quite slow when it comes to adopting technology.
So I hear you when you say that the financial service industries have adopted cloud. What about telecommunications or healthcare? How are they using or adopting cloud to offer services to their customers?
So yes, the telecommunications industry are also up there. I would say second to the financial service industry. The telecommunications industry is still largely dependent on a lot of fiber cables and all that, right? So when we talk about, for example, the three top hyperscalers out there, AWS, Azure, GCP, I think just AWS has like a local infrastructure here in Nigeria, right? We see some other players, doing that currently, but that integration with the huge dependence of fiber optic cables for the telecom space and the cloud infrastructure has been a big gap, basically. So yes, they do. There's good adoption in telecom space, right? Generally, but when it comes to their core products, they rely heavily on fiber optic.
So for those that are adopting cloud very well, those in the FSI space, what has been the major driver? Is it cost? Is it cost efficiency? Is it scale? Is it what's the major driver for them?
So to be honest, in the last 2-3 years, it's been scalability. Yeah, I mean, we saw what happened.
Scalability over cost?
No, so of course, right? You have to always make trade-offs.
Yeah.
You always have to make trade-offs, either cost or performance or security or whatever it is, right? So scalability also goes together with costs, right? Because if I have, for example, if I have a coffee shop and I have the highest influx of customers, let's say Sunday afternoon, right? The rest of the week, I think maybe one barista can handle my customers, right? But then on Sunday, I need like 3 baristas to handle my customers. So what happens is, if you're running, for example, on premises, you cannot have the flexibility of that scalability to say, okay, I'm going to get 3 baristas only on Sunday, and then when it gets back to the next day on Monday, I can get back to 1 barista. So scalability goes together with costs. Right, so that has been one major. We saw, I think, was it 2023, the cash crunch? Yeah, exactly.
I was just going to come to that to say, even in the financial service industry, there seems to be difference in adoption. So, for instance, it feels like the fintechs are running faster with cloud than traditional banks because they can scale faster overnight. Than a bank that would need to sit for a board session to procure servers and all of that.
All of that.
So do you think the speed at which financial fintech startups are growing is because of being digital natives? They adopted cloud from the get-go. Is that why they are faster and making more profits, if we say that, than traditional banks?
That's one major advantage. There are other things, right? I mean, cloud is basically supporting structure to your business, so it's not the entire business, right? So but that is one major advantage, because they can literally have thousands of transactions going on at the same time, and then scale down as well, which also helps them with their bottom line costs, right? So yes, it's a major advantage, most definitely.
Now, so when looking at challenges companies face in migrating to the cloud, what are those challenges that seem to come up when these conversations are being held?
Yeah, so one of them, of course, is always cost. Cost is always a challenge for any adoption, right? And when we say cost, sometimes it's not necessarily the actual cost of it, but the idea of the cost of it.
Change management.
Exactly, change management. How do you manage? I'm used to, as they will say, the devil I know is better than the angel I don't know, right? So how do you manage the change management of handling the cost on the cloud? Because to be honest, cloud costs are now operational expenses, largely operational expenses compared to the IT hardware that was largely capex, right? So that change is one of the big challenges. There's also regulations, right? Like I said, I think well, not to preempt myself anyway. So regulations is another big challenge.
I'll get to regulation in a bit, but there have been concerns in recent past around data security and of course data sovereignty for businesses migrating to the cloud, which stems from regulation, like we know it. So I think somewhere in the fine print, it's been misconstrued that maybe certain organizations or maybe government organizations, for instance, cannot use the cloud But is that necessarily so?
So like you said, fine print. It's all about the fine print. Like if we have a look into the actual NDPR fine print, right, nothing restricts any government organization or any financial service industry organization to make use to leverage the cloud, right? What is largely emphasized in the NDPR, right, it's around data sovereignty, just like you mentioned, making sure that your data is seated in the country. Right, so we've been able to help some of our customers ensure that these kinds of compliance, that they're compliant to these regulations, right? And AWS as well has done a great job, right, in terms of having infrastructure here in Lagos, Nigeria. So what that means is governments, FSI, health sector, whatever sector, telecoms, you can have your data seated in Nigeria, right, and still leverage the power of the cloud. So yeah.
Now, are there any industries that could spin up surprises in the next future, in Nigeria especially, that haven't really adopted the cloud, but you think maybe a little change in information would see that speed rushing them into adopting cloud technology?
Yeah, most definitely the health industry, right? I mean, last week or last 2 weeks we had a roundtable, digital health roundtable in Abuja. Yeah, we had, exactly. So we had the Ministry of Health there, we had NIDA as well there, we had eHealth, we had Gavi. I mean, all the digital health key players basically, and the main need within the national health space is around data consolidation. Yes. So there are different solutions currently being employed to achieve many different things, and data is in silo everywhere, right? But because of the lack of clarity when it comes to data usage and cloud usage and all that within the health sector, the adoption of cloud in terms of consolidating those data and getting the advantage out of that data has become a really big issue, right? Or limiting factor, basically.
So before I let you go, I have just one question for you. What trends do you see in the near future with regards to cloud adoption in Nigeria? And what advice would you have for young businesses? Do you have to save up or do you start now?
Yeah, so in terms of trends, we're seeing a lot of startups start on the cloud, which is good, right? I mean, as a startup, you don't have the thousands and millions of naira to procure a server or whatever, right? So, and that is giving them the advantage to basically scale globally in seconds, right? And then in terms of advice for young businesses, I would say start now on the cloud, right? Go cloud native, cloud first, have a cloud first strategy, right? It makes life easier, to be honest, right? You don't have to worry about a lot of management overhead of your IT infrastructure. You can have people like CloudPlexo's to ensure that your entire infrastructure is scalable. As you scale, as your business scales, right? Then your technology scales together with it.
Thank you, David. Thank you very much for joining us on today's edition of Tech Hub. We'll be back shortly after this break. Don't go nowhere. Welcome back. That's a wrap for today's edition of Tech Hub. Follow us on social media, on YouTube, on our handles to continue the conversation. And remember to join us same time next week for more interesting and exciting technology updates across Africa. Remember, the future is limitless. Until next time, I am Kenneth Akan. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.